Hi, everyone, and welcome back. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Gabe Shanhar.
And I'm Ryan Puzlakowski.
And on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a very high-end, limited production EV, the Lucid Air. It's very expensive. It's at least the first couple versions are very expensive. And for those who don't know, the company or the development of the car is led by a gentleman who's the ex-Tesla Model S chief engineer. And you could see some of the influences from Tesla in this car, but we will get to that. But the first question I want to ask, Gabe, is, you know, like Tesla and also Rivian, which has pickup truck, the R1T and the R1S, the SUV that's coming out or is out soon. Kind of why do we have a Lucid? Why do we need a nearly $200,000 EV in this world when people are really talking about getting more affordable EVs out there into the public?
Well, things evolve, you know. Why is there Lucid? Why is there Rivian? Why is there a Tesla? Why is there no more Pontiac? Why is there no more Oldsmobile? So brands come and brands go, and why we need, to your point, of affordable EVs. I mean, look, we all know that buying new cars is kind of like there's a lot of fashion and a lot of vanity that goes into buying new cars, and so it's where the luxury end of the market is heading right now is towards EV. So there's an opportunity there.
What we rented is the Air Grand Touring Standard with the Grand Touring Luxe Tahoe interior. I don't know what color Tahoe is, but it's that's the interior. It makes 800 horsepower, has dual motors, which gives it all-wheel drive. One of the niceties of it for the price, 3 years included charging with the Electrify America system, or network, excuse me. All of that for an MSRP of $140,500, but that includes the $1,500 destination charge, which I found interesting because destination charges usually mean that they include a tank full of gas. So, you know, is it a full charge with this? Gas is more expensive. I don't know. Anyway, so it uses the Lucid uses a 900 volt architecture, and it really, right now, is the longest range of any EV, right? About 400, almost 70 miles.
That's what caught my eye.
Yeah. To date, there's no EV with a longer range. So the first version that came out, the Dream, the really expensive one, had a 520-mile range. The one we rented, the Grand Touring, has a 469-mile range. So that almost rivals a gas car range, and that means that you can just drive this car without thinking about range for days on end without plugging it in, and it gives you a nice peace of mind.
Sure. So on the driving, I mean, we all drove it, but Ryan, you know, what was your first experience with it? Because it is, I mean, you look at it, it's a stunning looking car.
It is. I didn't even know what it looked like. Honestly, I heard Lucid a million times. We talk about it in meetings and whatnot. I didn't know what it was, but I heard the range was near 500 miles. Right. So that's what caught my ear and made me interested in this thing, right? And when it was here, I just walked by it, didn't realize it at first, and then I realized it because it's beautiful. Very good looking car. Then I went to get in it, and I had a hard time getting in.
It went downhill?
Well, I'm taller, I guess, and the pillar, we're going to get into it, I guess, but I had a hard time getting in it. Once I was in it and once I was driving it, it is a very well sorted out car dynamically. I mean, it drives smaller than it is. I mean, that's a pretty big car, but it feels small. It feels smaller than, meaning it handles well. It takes care of itself quite well. The steering's nice. It rides well, and it's got these skinny. Well, the one I forget the wheel size was, but I mean, it has its skinny little tires on it. There was not a lot of sidewall there, and this thing rode pretty well. I was impressed. And then the power is ridiculous, right? I mean, it has. You said 800. It was 800.
800 horsepower.
It's delivered nicely though. It doesn't snap your neck. It very it comes in and it makes its presence known, but it's not like it's not like jumpy, like snap your neck.
So it's not like ludicrous mode,
right?
All the time.
Yeah. But it's still. I mean, it impressed me. And I was the first time I stepped on it. I was like, wow, this thing moves. Which all these luxury big expensive EVs do, I guess. But this thing is really smooth. I was impressed with that. I think it felt like $140,000 car driving it. I really did.
Sure. So appropriate for the price, basically.
I mean, if you can imagine that. I think in today's world, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Gabe, your take on the driving experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, by the way, the tires are 21-inch tires,
they were big wheels.
Yeah, I mean, it rides well, except a low-speed ride in like city-type situations. You feel some harshness there. So we'll see on the car we buy with 20-inch tires if it's any better.
And live with it longer.
Yeah,
I mean, I only drove it for an evening.
But I totally agree with Ryan about the whole the responses of the car. Even though 800 plus horsepower might sound outrageous. I mean, there's nothing to worry about here because it delivers the power in a very measured, kind of a gradual way. It's very tractable, so it doesn't give you everything at once, but you control it very nicely. Same goes for the handling. I mean, even though it handles beautifully, it drives much smaller, like Ryan said, but it never feels darty or nervous. So everything all the responses are a lot more measured. If you're going to make some comparisons to the Tesla Model S, that gives you everything like all at once.
Right. Yeah.
Everything is much more proportional to your inputs.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Putting yourself into a luxury car, maybe, a level above where we may live. I mean, I don't know what you guys do on the weekend, but I don't live in that level of luxury.
Sour above me.
It kind of got me into a position where the living with it was weird.
Yeah.
Going to an ATM, for example, or picking up medicine at CVS, or the pharmacy. The arc of the roof and the thick pillars and the seating position made it impossible to reach out without clanking my head. Yeah. And I'm not tall as you, we're about the similar heights. It was really weird to say, how does a car like that get through development? Is there any consideration for banging your head, just reaching out the window? That was really odd and disappointing.
Yeah, I guess they compromised a little bit of
with aerodynamics.
It's styling. I mean, I hit my head on that pillar trying to look around the pillar because it's like in your way, and I couldn't, I got the seat as low as usually I slam the seats all over the floor. So I got it as low as I could. And it was still just like, it just feels like it's there and it's in your way. And it is. I mean, for me, it was, it has the windshield's that nice, it's all glass all the way up like
super
the Model X.
Oh yeah.
Which is neat.
But with useful visors that actually are well integrated, not like the Model X.
But that pillar was
right.
But to your point, like go to an ATM, a lot of the ATMs, especially in a car like that, you're sitting a little lower. The ATM's kind of up.
For an SUV now.
Yeah. And you're like, yeah, exactly. And it's I had a little bit of issue with that. And for me, if just referring to driving position, the steering wheel didn't telescope quite enough for me, my position. But they did a lot. There's a lot of styling there, and styling a lot of times gets in the way of everyday life, right?
And it's minor in this grand sense. I mean, if you're going to it once a week at the most, that's a lot. But it still was a very weird thing to have. It was disconcerting to have because in the luxury car, whether it's an Audi A8 or a Mercedes S-Class or even in the Model S, it just doesn't have that same. So it felt odd. The interior is gorgeous. The giant display, super clear. I didn't try the front trunk. But when you open up the back trunk, the standard trunk, if you will, at first it looks very shallow but deep. Like you could slide a TV all the way in or something like that.
Right.
But then there's a little well in there that's useful. So useful as well. Because when I picked the car up from you, I had a cooler, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? I'm going to put a cooler in the gorgeous interior. How does it play in this category as far as interior goes? And then I know there's some updates that are coming as well, for the technology, especially in-car entertainment and such, right?
So the way it plays is probably not going to CVS and picking up your medicine or hauling your cooler from a soccer game. The car is it's kind of a rolling sculpture.
Sure.
And it's a conversation piece. I parked it on the street in New York City, and I couldn't. I was talking to the whole world about the car there.
And it's not like New York City doesn't have its share of...
Pedestrians are stopping and people are pulling their cameras. So that's really what's happening here. And I agree. Everything is gorgeous about the car. The interior is gorgeous. It has a lot of matte wood and a lot of suede and alpaca wool in there. It's gorgeous, and the fact that, and you mentioned the canopy, the that the windshield just flows into the roof, and it gives you there's certainly a sense of occasion in this car. It's a lot of interesting special things. Whether or not they're functional or practical is a whole different story, but
sure.
It's a striking car no matter what.
It doesn't go full Tesla with moving all the controls to the screen away from you, but it's somewhat. I mean, it's continuing that trend set by Tesla, with Rivian as well. A lot of things are done through the screen, not through physical controls.
Yeah, we certainly don't appreciate adjusting the mirrors and the steering wheel through the screen and steering wheel buttons. But in general, controls are more conventional than in a Tesla. There are some things that are done directly, like temperature adjustment, and the thumb wheels on the steering wheel are pretty intuitive.
Yep. Did you spend any time in the back seat? I mean, I played around in the back seat a bit.
I jumped back there briefly, and I found the headroom to be a little bit dismal.
Sure. Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not going to harp on it. It is if that's compared to an S-Class, okay, S-Class has a ton more room in the backseat, right? And
not the EQS, but the regular S-Class, right?
Yeah. So yeah, legroom was okay. Actually, it was really the headroom that was a real issue for me. But what is this car for, though, right? I mean, if you and I bring up the S-Class because the S-Class is a car that you can haul for a full-grown adult in, right, and be wildly comfortable. If you don't have a back seat that's that comfortable, I think you might have missed the point a little.
Sure.
In a car that size, that's kind of the point, right? I mean,
well, and chauffeured almost. I mean,
yes, exactly.
You get to that point,
right.
much like you see a lot of the Genesis models. They'll even have the button on the right seat for the driver to pull the seat forward. I found the rear seat, again, roomy, a lot of leg room, no toe room under the front seat. So sitting behind myself, it was, you got into that little bit of a position of sitting either, like splay-legged for support or sitting with your knees up a little bit. But again, I mean, how many of these cars are taking people around in the back?
The flat floor helps. I mean, there is certainly a lot of room there, but I could see the bench a little raised in the front for better thigh support.
So the final question, I mean, maybe just go back. Where does the technology, Gabe, how's the technology of this vehicle benefit the EV industry as a whole? I mean, this is a 0.05% car, if you will, or even, even fewer. Does it help, or is it just like, this is our niche, this is our vehicle, we're going to go our way, and everyone else figure it out?
Yeah, for sure. The 900-volt architecture is kind of unique, and that means that the car can accept up to 300 kilowatt of max charging power in DC fast charging places and public places, of course. And that's the fastest charging that is known yet in EVs. The nature of these things is that these kind of benchmarks tend to trickle down eventually into lower priced cars. So once you set a standard, other people begin to follow.
Sure. Well, we're going to buy our own. Which version now?
Touring.
So we're going to buy a Touring. We, like any vehicle, it's on the way sometime before I leave the company.
I know.
Well, the way these companies make cars, they make them to order.
Yeah.
Rivian as well, Tesla also. So first you specify your car. There's no such thing as like an inventory, and you come to the dealer and you're
not kicking tires on the lot. Yeah. Just in case you're new to Talking Cars podcast or video podcast, we buy all the vehicles that we test. So what's unique about this one is that it's a rented model. So we rented it from the manufacturer. We pay them a fee, sliding scale fee based on the value of the vehicle, but we won't test it. So these are just first drive experiences, kind of filling out databases, stuff like that. But we then buy one retail, online, at the store, whatever, and then we put those through tests. So we'll have more on the Lucid Air beyond our first drive when we get ours in. Now we'll go to the question and answer section of our show. As always, please send your questions to talkingcars@icloud.com. Send them text, send them video, whatever you can send. We love them. We want to answer more variety of questions. This one comes from Mark from Petaluma, California, and he's asking about replacement tires on an EV.
I bought new tires for my Tesla Model 3 and have noticed a significant drop in the range that I'm getting as well as the efficiency. We bought the Cross Climate 2s, which were highly rated. Notice they were highly rated in every area except rolling resistance on Consumer Reports. Wasn't sure what the effect would be on my range and found it to be rather significant. I'm going from about 204 watt hours per mile to about 240 watt hours per mile. So just would like your input on making decisions around purchasing tires for EVs, and if the factor of rolling resistance should take a higher precedence or higher priority when doing that.
All right, so Ryan, he has his Model 3.
Yep.
He replaced tires with our top-rated tires, and now he's asking why he's not happy.
I know, and I'm sorry. Yeah, so he bought. He's got a Model 3. EVs, most of all the EVs that come from the factory today have some sort of a low rolling resistance tire on it. Rolling resistance is the energy required to roll a tire across the ground, basically directly related to fuel economy or here electric range. Okay, so the tires are optimized from the factory to have a lot of or have very low rolling resistance to allow the car to get that extra mile per gallon or range.
So less friction.
Yes, less. Yeah, exactly. He bought replacement tires. There's OE tires that come on the car, and then there's replacement tires.
Original equipment, OE.
Right. The replacement car tires that we test here at Consumer Reports are generally they have a different recipe for success. They're advertising long rolling long tread wear, good dry and wet grip, winter traction, whatever that might be, right? So his tires wear out. The original tires wear out. He comes to us. He buys Michelin Cross Climate tires, excellent tires. They, as he mentioned, they don't have the lowest rolling resistance, meaning they use a little more energy to roll down the road, and so he loses some range. This is a real thing, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of replacement EV tires out there yet, meaning low rolling resistance tires built specifically for EVs. There's a few, and there's more coming. They're just not there yet. But you can put regular traditional car tires on an EV, but you might lose that range because they're not optimized for that. Now, in our ratings, to kind of answer part of his question, in our ratings, rolling resistance isn't heavily weighted. We weight things that are important that help you avoid a crash: dry and wet braking, handling, hydroplaning resistance.
So safety related factors.
Exactly. And then, noise and ride comfort and rolling resistance are more value features, if you will.
Okay.
So that's how the Cross Climate makes its way towards the top of the list. Okay. Sure. It does everything really well. The rolling resistance, not so well, but that's not weighted as heavily, right? We're going to do a little project soon on, range and, if you just slap any old tires on your EV, what happens?
Sure.
In performance wise too, because you can put a really low rolling resistance tire on a car and maybe you ruin your handling, right? Or you ruin something else.
Because it's a compromise.
Tires
no
are
matter
compromised.
What.
Exactly.
Right.
I say this every time.
And the OE, the original equipment tires, Gabe said, they're specifically designed, the manufacturer designs them for that company, right? Yes. They tweak them for their special sauce, I think.
Yeah, Tesla will go to Michelin and say, hey, I want these are the aspects we really want enhanced in that tire. Okay. And then, they do that accordingly.
So it could be ride comfort and not rolling resistance or vice versa.
It could be any mix of things, right? Efficiency is always up on the list, though, for OE tires because they got to sell that car with a good, efficiency number on it. So
we're going to let you give your voice a rest. Gabe, in these situations, how do people use our ratings? Like what's good advice? Because of course a highly rated product, car, blender, whatever we want to say, does well across most of our tests. But what if you're in a situation like this? What do you do?
Yeah, it's important to realize that our ratings are a composite of many aspects of the product, in this case, the tire. So if you're really interested in one specific thing, feel free to look at every individual category and pick the one that has the aspect that you value most. For instance, I recommend to my niece in Chicago for her Tiguan the Nokian One tire because of snow traction and ice traction. Of course, I ran it by Ryan first, but if that's the most valuable thing, then go ahead and don't be hung up on the fact that it's not the first line in the rating chart.
Right. And on CRO, on consumerreports.org, CRO, you can sort based on, you can look at our ratings based on what factors you find more important and less important, right?
Yeah. You can use our tire selector and bring up the, your size on your vehicle and what we tested that fits it. And then in those ratings, you can sort by that kind of stuff. Because people in Florida probably aren't worried about snow traction, right? And a lot of our tires, test, on the upper half of the list, have to do pretty well in snow traction because that's a requirement, right?
Sure.
So yeah, it's you just because it's at the top of the list doesn't mean, or even the top 3, it doesn't mean it might be the best for you.
All right, Mark. Well, hopefully that answers your question, and send us a message. Let us know what happens with your next tire purchase. As everyone else, please send us your questions, comments, reactions, talkingcars@icloud.com. That's going to do it for this episode. The show was ably produced by Dave Abrams and edited by Anatoly Shumsky and Andrew Belize. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.